Attention, world launch of the new Focus Atlas, a gravel bike on paper, versatile, adventurous. But I'm telling you, it's full of nuances we'll discover gradually. And the best thing about today is that we're going to have two models in the same video, the carbon one and the aluminum one. Let's go all out with the review. This German brand has always been passionate about having two basic pillars in all its models: technological development. Also, they offer very competitive prices given the equipment and components on their bikes. These two new Atlas models are no exception because, to begin with, we have a frame, as you can see, that's quite fast, lightweight carbon, just about 1050 grams, and it's robust enough to handle any kind of adventure, even bike packing. But at the same time, it's light enough to take on a hypothetical race with a number plate. The geometry of this bike, let's say it's somewhere in between the uncomfortable but very fast racing bikes and the comfortable but somewhat sluggish adventure bikes. Can we say it has an interesting sporty geometry? For example, we can see details like this slight sloping of the top tube, these seat stays that come to end here at mid-height. These are small details that we'll go into a bit more later, but they give this bike a very interesting level of responsiveness. On the other hand, we have details like the carbon finish fork with 3 mounts for bike packing on both sides of the fork. We have a Birmingham small arms bottom bracket, and we also have a 27.5 seat post. Round, 100% universal, easy to find and easy to replace if we ever need to. And many other details like the possibility to install fenders, panniers and a double chainring. We also have a protector on the lower part of the down tube, which is very thick, and of course the possibility to store gear is inside the down tube. Honestly, we're creating a dedicated section for this. The storage compartment is excellent and deserves recognition. We'll discuss it later. If there's one thing to highlight about this bike, is the spectacular job done to hide the cables. If we start from the beginning, we'll see by following the cables that there's a small part that's actually exposed right here under the handlebars. This on a bicycle. Adventurous, I defend it. Why? Well, because it's likely that we'll have to put it in a box, in a suitcase, travel with it, take apart the handlebar in many situations. And that level of practicality of having a two-piece stem handlebar with external wiring for quick removal and attachment. For this type of bike, it makes sense. However, in a racing bike, aerodynamics are the priority, and a cockpit and fully internal wiring might be preferable. Of course, as soon as the cables go directly through the stem and the steering system, which is 100% designed by Focus, they are now completely hidden and routed through key points inside the frame, such as the entire area surrounding the trunk. The handling of the bike is simply spectacular because it feels agile, responsive, like a racing bike. At the same time, it remains stable and absorbs terrain irregularities thanks to the frame. So you can rack up mile after mile. Let's say it's a bike that manages to blur the line that separates the competitive bikes from the adventure bikes, making it a very fine line. Looking at the geometry on paper, if we look at the numbers, it looks like a geometry. But then, when I had the chance to ride it, I felt it was very comfortable. So how did you manage to find this balance between two walls?
So we tested a lot with different heights, we tried some differences, but initially we were happy with the old Atlas Carbon. We just wanted to make it more responsive, more effective, and a little lower without losing its settled position. Because it shouldn't be a gravel bike, that's 100% clear. We wanted to keep it as it was, as an adventure bike. So we ended up with a balance. Too low would be too racy, too high, right? The feeling, we want to create a live reaction, so we had to fix it a bit, and then you get closer.
Closer.
Close, so it's a test in the end.
Key parameters often include wheelbase and weight. Wheelbase. The official maximum for this bike is 45 millimeters. In fact, right now it has a 45 millimeter tire mounted, which is installed on a rim with a 32 millimeter internal width. So it gives us, let's say, a lot of volume. They're officially 45 millimeters, but as you know, unofficially, we can fit a 47 or even a 48 millimeter tire without any problem. And regarding the weight, well, you can see it for yourselves. Considering that it's a bike that comes with mid-range components and wheels with a very high profile, which always add more weight, let's say it still has a weight that's acceptable for both adventures and competitions without any problem. Knowing that the frame weight is right there around the 1 kilogram mark, by making some modifications to the components, it's likely that the bike could lose quite a bit of weight if you want to invest in that. We spent about an hour and a half testing the bikes. Fortunately, this time I got to test the aluminum one, and obviously the rear part, you can feel it. Very different from the carbon one, in the sense that it absorbs much less, but the combination with the carbon front fork, which is exactly the same as the one on the older sibling of the S8 series, makes a very good pair. The front part absorbs very well. The feel of riding the bike, even though it's made of aluminum, is quite similar to that of carbon, with its limitations because of the weight, because of the absorption. That's what it is in which con lia vening bard intero by we celebrated it in a chamber. For those people who are just starting out and want to try it, how was the experience? Very good, I liked it. It's not the typical aluminum tank bike that's hard to move. It's very good. Now let's talk about one of the parts that's becoming more relevant, adventure gravel bikes, which has to do with the storage cavity for keeping gear in the down tube. I personally call it the trunk, affectionately, okay? I've tested a lot of bikes with many types of storage cavities, different kinds of trunks, and I have to tell you that so far this is the one that has surprised me the most. I'll give all the reasons because I think it's very well designed. Finally, to start to open the trunk, we have a part that's not a wheel that rotates, and sometimes it's hard to open. If our hands are cold, frozen or full, with a little force on the lever, it opens just fine. Second place. Second argument, the trunk door comes off completely, leaving absolutely all the access in our hands. There are some systems where the door rotates and the space is limited to put your hand in. Voucher from the Perfecta Residence Lalena's pension. He looks successful and the helicopter is warm from a delivery, the one that he knows her reverse aeroport lecto, the approximately here Hoyensbergen comes, so give me a moment and there is no problem. Another super important point is that we have low capacity along the entire diagonal tube. Okay, there are some bikes that have that possibility limited to a certain compartment. The internal design of the box is excellent because it separates completely and not just along the open section, but throughout the entire diagonal tube. The internal cables go through special holes made for them, separate from the load we put inside the frame. So there are no noises, there's absolutely no problem at all. And finally down here, right above the bottom bracket box, there's a stopper that we can't see from the outside, but it prevents this bag from falling and causing problems down there inside the bottom bracket box. Of course, the bag comes as standard with the bicycle and it's already prepared with various rubber bands so we can insert our spares with our tools. To most, this may seem like a regular gravel bike, but it's packed with details. If you want more, I'll give you a bonus that will blow your mind. Like so now, for example, this mount for a light or action camera on the saddle clamp, which can be super useful. We have something similar, maybe more common, on the bike computer mount just below to also carry a camera or light. The fork comes ready for internal cable routing, a hypothetical dynamo on the front axle, and above all, one of the most interesting features that make it so that no two Focus Atlas bikes are the same, at least of this model, the same. It has to do with the paint, because as you can see, the sparkles we have in white or grey, green and purple are done by hand. It's a painting process that they apply directly. I think it's a kind of foam, and they paint each of the squares with each color so that they all look alike, but none of them are exactly the same. And I think this is a great point to be able to say that you have a unique bicycle, that there isn't another one exactly like yours. And finally, as the unique feature, Focus already has specific panniers for this model, which you can buy and place on the back for your adventures. We'll do something I rarely do in reviews, check the entire range from top to bottom. In this case, I think it's worth it because much of the new Focus Atlas's value comes from its component selection, different gear ratios, different brands for the group sets, and so on. And I really think it's worth it. The bold move, let's say, that Focus is making in that sense, and that might suit many of you. At the top of the range, starting with carbon, we have this 8.9, which is the one you're seeing in the video, the one I had the chance to test for a long time. Let's say this is the highest range it offers, without being considered the standard top of the line model from any brand, because obviously the components aren't the very highest end, but it's the model that's the highest we'll be able to find, and probably the one with the sportiest touch. Okay, why? Well, because it comes with the new rival transmission, the Explorer completely wireless, a single 40-tooth chainring, the new 13 speed in the back with a 1046 cassette. And the truth is that it's a group that has improved a lot compared to previous road versions. Not only because of how it shifts up and down the cassette with very little spacing and let's say very smoothly, but above all because of the feel of the brakes. That's something I've really loved about this group. And on the other hand, we have these Zone Improvement Plan 303S Explorer. They're not the big sisters, let's say, but they do offer us that 32mm internal width, and we also have a 54mm rim depth. Let's say everything is designed for those who want to ride fast. If we go further down, the 8 and the 8.7, always within the carbon range, well, they expand the options of coming directly equipped. Now, whether with a mallet or a double chain ring, we have 3 different bikes, 3 different types of transmissions. Okay, when I talk about the mullet, the 8, I'm talking about a drivetrain with a single 40-tooth chainring and a 1052 mountain bike cassette. And I think this is very important for those people who are just starting out and don't have a super good physical condition yet. Conversely, those planning to carry heavy loads for bike packing, because that 52 in the back when you're climbing really steep slopes makes a huge positive difference. So I think it's a really good choice. And on the other hand, we already have the 8.7, which comes with a Shimano double chainring. Let's say for the purists, for those who want the option that has always existed on the road, The aluminum range is interesting and curious, offering both single and double chainring options. Of course, now all the drivetrains are Shimano, and here I would especially highlight the 6.8 model, which comes standard, with fenders, with panniers, with a kickstand, with lights, and with a section on the front wheel. It's the ideal all-terrain bike. It gets you to work on weekdays and takes you on adventures on weekends. Pros and cons. Your favorite part? I'll start with what I liked, which I've mostly already mentioned. These bikes are full of good ideas, maybe abstract, but as you've seen, they're loaded with details. Both models handle excellently. The carbon one is surprising because you expect more. Bouncy, more adventurous, comfortable but not agile, and actually it's the opposite, you know. The bike is very responsive, and that's why I think it can be a good option to occasionally put a race number on it. And the aluminum one is surprising because especially the rear part of aluminum bikes is usually hard to get into the curve, hard to take where you want. In the end, they carry extra weight from the wheels in the bottom bracket and rear triangle. And honestly here the bike has felt very agile for aluminum, at least while I tested it. Definitely the best trunk I've tried. Great cable integration in my opinion. The components, I think the choice of components is very smart, with down-to-earth components that make the prices more accessible. And finally, I would also highlight the finish on the aluminum models, the polishing of the welds, especially on the tubes that join with the head tube. With the seat stays, the bike's appearance makes it hard to tell at first glance if it's aluminum or carbon. Then, if you look at the rear dropouts or the bottom bracket area, that's where it's harder to hide, right? But honestly, the look of the aluminum one, for being an aluminum bike, seems very premium to me. Honestly, there are a few things I haven't liked. For example, let's look at this bike's handlebar. I think that the ergonomics once you grab the lower part aren't completely well designed. I have a relatively small hand and it's hard for me to fit it in here. I can't imagine how it would be for people with bigger hands, so that aspect could be improved a lot. Also, as I mentioned, the frame absorbs vibrations well, especially noticeable in the seat stays at the rear. In all the work on the seat tube, along with the seat post and everything else, I have to say that the seat post seemed excessively stiff. I understand it has to be that way to support the weight of hypothetical backpacks, panniers, and so on. But let's say the setup with the frame is a bit unbalanced. The frame absorbs a lot, the fork is very stiff, something that could definitely be improved. Finally, this isn't a negative point, but it is a warning. Focus, a German brand, uses Central European sizing, which means their sizes run quite large. For my height of 1.65 meters, I'm using a size S. The M was a bit too long for me, so it's true that I'm using a size S. As you can see with the seat post that has some setback and the saddle a little bit towards the back. But keep that in mind, always take it into consideration. Pick the correct size, preferably the smaller one. Short, who is this for? Is this bike intended for? I think it's pretty clear. On one hand, it's for those people who want to buy their first gravel bike and aren't really sure yet what kind of gravel riding they're going to do. The best option is to have a versatile tool, and I believe both the aluminum and carbon versions work well. And on the other hand, those people who want to have just one gravel bike, as versatile as possible. Thinking about validly adventures, packing, and possibly a race number. I think in that sense a model like the 9.8 Carbon could fit perfectly. Well, I hope you really enjoyed the review. Give the video a big like. Let me know what rating from 1 to 10 would you give this bike in the comments and be very happy. See you in the next one. Bye.